I usually use seeds that are known as proven seeds. Basically, what a proven seed is it's a giant pumpkin seed that's like over usually a 1,500 pounds, sometimes 2,000, and that seed that's grown by a good grower that's proven that you can grow a 2,000 pound pumpkin. That way, I know that this seed is not a dud, and it can actually grow a good pumpkin.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Deep Dive with Varuna. In today's episode, we have Sankalp and Sankalp's mom Leela Garu here. This boy has grown 1334 pounds giant pumpkin and he won in a couple of contests. Right, Sankalp?
Yeah, we took it to the giant pumpkin way off. It was a huge deal. We took a forklift and we had to put a huge lifting strap around the pumpkin, we had to rent a truck, and then we had to drive it over to about an hour to the way off where we weighed the pumpkin on a big industrial scale to get the final weight of 1,334 pounds.
May I know when did you start growing pumpkins?
Pumpkins themselves, I started growing them like 3 years ago. Technically four. The first year it was kind of I planted in the house and it didn't really grow that good. But then that was kind of my learning year. But I officially started 3 years ago. I started the seed indoors, planning to plant it inside my own backyard in our old house. But then I met Jim Bielgard and I saw the Grange, and they had a huge community garden. And when me and my mom went to visit there, I talked with Jim, who is the leader of the community garden project, and they were like, "Hey, we have the space over here. Why don't you plant your giant pumpkin over here, and you can grow it there?" And ever since then, first year I grew a 472-pound pumpkin. Next year I grew a 585, and this year I grew a 1,334-pound pumpkin. So it's just been the pounds have just continually been going up and up, and hopefully I can someday reach 2,000.
How did you know about this pumpkin contest?
I've always I've always wanted to grow like unique vegetables and stuff. So when I found out about giant pumpkins, I was like, oh my God, that's like so cool. I want to grow a giant pumpkin. And then as I did more research into growing giant pumpkins, how to grow them, and like what you do with the end result, I found out about giant pumpkin weigh-offs. And then I talked with Brian Myers, who is like the leader of the California Giant Pumpkin Weigh-offs. And he helped me out, register for it and helped me out with mentoring. And that's how I was able to take it to the way off and go rent a truck and stuff like that.
So if I want to participate in the contest, I'm not being a competitor again, but can you teach me what to do first?
The first thing is number one is research, and with almost anything you do, you want to research what you're doing and know what you're doing before you start. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and money. So like when you start off, there's many sites like YouTube, bigpumpkins.com, there's also Facebook like groups or whatever that are simply just for giant pumpkin growing. And there's like giant pumpkin backyard. All these are for Facebook groups. I don't usually use Facebook, but and then there's big pumpkins. And I did all this research on YouTube too, where I'd like look at for hours different YouTube videos of the soil science, and then I used to sell soil tests. And then another thing is to find out local growers in your area. And if you know who's growing in your area, then you can know your soil type and what exactly they're doing, so you can replicate it to get similar results that they're getting.
So are there specific seeds for these giant pumpkins?
Yes, so these are a variety off of the Atlantic giant pumpkin. Like 60, 70 years ago, there's this guy named Dill, I forget his name. It was Howard Dill. He took the regular pumpkins, and through natural selection, where you take the largest pumpkin and cross it with the second largest pumpkin or another large pumpkin, you get a larger pumpkin. And you slowly, like you take a 500-pound pumpkin. Let's say 6 years ago, 500 pounds used to be the world record. Then they would cross it with another 500-pound pumpkin and hope to get it larger. And then they keep crossing larger with larger and larger and larger, making better growing techniques to make the gene pool itself better. Like 20 years ago, it would be a big accomplishment. Sorry, I don't know how I was tripping on that. accomplishment to grow a 1,200 pound pumpkin, but this right now it's like 2,500 because they keep crossing these larger and larger pumpkins from the same Hubbard dill variety seed, Atlantic giant pumpkin seed.
Here, crossing means cross-pollination.
Yeah, cross.
Can you explain what cross-pollination is? How do you do that?
Basically, just like how you have a mom and you have a dad. Everyone has a mom and dad, and the gene pool of your mom and dad is equal to you. So I have my mom, and like for example, my face is like my mom. I don't know, it's my nose, my eyes, my mouth is like my mom, but maybe my hair is like my dad, or my ears are like my dad. Just like that, you take when you cross one variety of a seed with another, you take the pollen from one male flower or female flower and put it into a female. So let's say my pumpkin itself was a pollination between a cross between the 1707 Caspers and the 1940 Urena, and by cross-pollinating them, I was able to create a new seed, which is the 1334 Immadisetty. And with that, that's how you cross-pollinate. And like some genes go really heavy, but they're smaller. So heavy means like for a small size, they weigh a lot. And some seeds are just go really fast and start. And what pumpkin growers do is they find these different genes and cross-multiply them with each other to get the best traits that they want to result in.
So, did you use new seeds every year from someone from another source, or did you use the seeds from your pumpkin for the next year?
I usually use seeds that are known as proven seeds. Basically, what a proven seed is it's a giant pumpkin seed that's like over usually 1,500 pounds, sometimes 2,000. And that seed that's grown by a good grower that's proven that you can grow a 2,000 pound pumpkin. That way, I know that this seed is not a dud and it can actually grow a good pumpkin. And every year, sometimes the seeds are brand new. Usually, I don't do that, and sometimes the seeds are like 2 to 3 years old. The 1940 Urena, which grew my 1334 pound pumpkin, was grown in 2019, I think, and it still is a great seed. And there's some seeds that are brand new that growers like know that it's really good genetics because it has two really good parents. And sometimes I grow that, like the 1707 Caspers, which was just 1 year old. And I kind of, took a bit of a risk on it, but I had a good idea of what its parents were, so I thought it would be a really good seed, and it turned out it was.
Okay, so I know genetics plays an important role, but then environment and nurturing also plays a big role, right? How did you take care of raising the seedlings or the saplings?
So yeah, as you said, genetics, having a really good seed is like the starting point, but without good prep or anything else, you're not going to grow a pumpkin anything close to the size. So first off, you need to make sure that your pumpkin plants and the temperature itself stays at a consistent, 70 to like 90 degrees. If it goes anything over 85, the pumpkin plant basically just shuts down and says, you know what, it's too hot. I'm just gonna wait until it's colder, and then I'm gonna start making energy for the pumpkin itself. So during winter and like during spring, when it's really cold, there's frost outside, I put these hoop houses, and in the hoop houses, I put a heater with a thermostat. So then I would make sure the heat for the plant itself, until the plant was about 5 feet long, was always around 80 degrees, 75 to 80 degrees. And during really cold nights, the plant would continue to grow because it would think it was really warm. And during the day, I'd turn off the heater and I would open the hoop house. Otherwise, because of the greenhouse effect, it would get too hot. And that's what I would do every day in the spring. But then as summer comes around, here in Sacramento region, it gets up to 118 degrees. So what I do is I put shade cloth over the entire 4,000 square feet of the patch. And with that, it decreases the amount of sun coming onto the plant by 40%. And in addition to that, I also added these things called misters, which would mist on the plant every 5 minutes, which would drastically decrease the air temperature. So it would basically create almost like it's the plant's own ecosystem where it would be nice and cool for the pumpkin plant to continue to grow in these 100-degree hot summer days. And we also had a drip system underneath the entire plant, covering the whole 2,000 square feet of plants. So then we could go ahead and keep the roots nice and moist throughout the whole day.
Do you have like multiple pumpkins for the same creeper, or how many pumpkins grow in that creeper?
So this year I had 2 plants. Each plant takes up around 1,000 square feet of space. And each pumpkin plant, I only grow one pumpkin on it. So then like the 1,000 square feet of plant and all of the energy coming from the sun and the ground all goes to one pumpkin. And you might be wondering, why am I watering the entire space? And the reason is at every single node, if I had a picture, I could show this to you. Every single node where the stem met the pumpkin leaf. So imagine the leaf, my hand is a leaf, and then this is the leaf that connected to the stem. The node right over here would have a root coming down and coming up. So what I would do is I would dig trenches and I would bury all the pumpkin vines. And every single leaf, there would be 2 extra roots that would come at the top and bottom. And I'd put a little bit of fertilizer, mycorrhiza, which is like a bacteria that helps the pumpkin plants grow and like the roots expand the roots. And I'd also put azos, which is a nitrogen fixing bacteria. And with that, that would continue to increase the amount of nutrient uptake that the pumpkin plant could get. And with more nutrients, obviously, you get a larger pumpkin.
Oh, awesome. So just 2 plants, that is like a lot of betting, right? Whether they would grow to that size. Do you get stressed out in the process?
They say that every 1 in 3 big pumpkins they blast or like they crack and stuff. And the reason for this is especially as they get to like over 1,000 pounds, the amount of stress that they have, just the amount of weight and water weight, they crack and like they crack in half, or they get a hole in them, or if a rat scratches it, causes rot. So it is a little bit stressful, but at the same time it's fun. And like it's just like any other competition. Anything can go wrong, and you had kind of how to be prepared for it. Last year we had 9 abortions, and we couldn't even set a pumpkin until August on the plant, which meant that I would have to grow the pumpkin during the hottest season and through the 100-degree days. And it's just like an experience that you learn from next year. Where, okay, last year I had to set a pumpkin later, which caused the heat to be too much, so I couldn't set a proper pumpkin. So this year I'm going to start the seed earlier. And it's just a growing process where you like learn what to do next year. And this year I started my seeds like a month earlier, and I did the hoop houses so then I have a head start. And by the time I was pollinating this year, my plant was basically a little seedling last year.
The pumpkin starts growing, what kind of measures do you take to prevent from rodents or breaking apart?
Fortunately, we specifically did not have as many rodent problems. And maybe it's because we're in a suburban area. But we were expecting to have rats and squirrels and stuff. But fortunately, we didn't. But we did have a few like frogs and stuff. But what most people do is they sprinkle cayenne pepper. So you can buy these like huge 1-quart jugs of cayenne pepper. And if you just sprinkle that around your pumpkin or around your entire plant and here and there, that deters mice, squirrels, or all these different, rodents and stuff that will try to come in because they just don't like the smell at all or the taste because it's spicy. And compared to rat traps and rodent traps, that's the best thing that works, is what I've seen and heard about.
Remember the pet cats in the
Oh yeah. Last year we've also had there was like a cat or like a stray cat that used to come and live underneath our pumpkin plant, and I have a few photos of it where it would just be like sitting and resting under with the shade. And I guess that would also help a bit, take care of the rats because there's a stray cat. And our area tends to have lots of stray cats in general. There's also cat crossing signs, so that might also be helping with the rodent problem. Yeah, and underneath the pumpkin itself, we also had a few layers. Well, for under the pumpkin plant, underneath the specific 6x6 pumpkin, we put a layer of wood, plywood, and on top of the plywood, we put these 2 layers of sheet called mill fabric, and that's the sheet that they used to make paper in the old paper mills, and it's super smooth. So then, as the pumpkin grows, we can slide it backwards, because as the pumpkin grows, it goes forward and backwards, which means it grows into the stem, and then the stem starts like this when you pull in the pumpkin, and it slowly creases because the pumpkin is growing back into it. So then, with the mill fabric, we can slide the entire pumpkin because it's so smooth. Just by having 2 sheets, we slide one sheet on from the other, and imagine the pumpkin's on the top. We can slowly slide it backward every few days, so then there isn't stress on the stem and the pumpkin can continue.
Oh, excellent. My next question was that how are we protecting the pumpkin from the mud and all
even a
that?
layer of sand.
No, we didn't do sand this year.
You didn't do sand this year, okay?
Oh.
But we didn't make sure it's all flat, but like Sand.
Couple of
The last
years we
couple
did.
years I put sand because I didn't have 2 layers of mill fabric. But now that I had layers of mill fabric, sand is kind of useless.
Okay, awesome. So this experience is humongous, right? How do you use this experience in other areas of life?
Well, this experience itself taught me many lessons. It's taught me how to, stay on the same thing throughout a whole season. Staying on the same task of growing this giant pumpkin took lots of work and effort, and not giving up was really hard. I mean, not really. It was not necessarily hard because I was dedicated to it, but it showed how to be dedicated to something throughout an entire season. And I was dedicated to growing this simple pumpkin for over a year. And additionally, it taught me, like especially last year, no matter what, not to give up. As my name suggests, willpower. I continued growing the pumpkin and continued doing pollination after pollination, even though they all aborted due to the heat. And I continued to not give up. And that's probably one of the biggest things I learned, to not give up, and persistence.
Yeah, persistence and grit takes you to better places. That's awesome, Sankalp. I am so proud of your achievements. I'm sure your parents might be on cloud nine when they see every year you grow up, especially with gardening. The other thing that I came to know is you are into robotics. Can you share your experiences?
Ever since last year, I've started doing competitive robotics, Vex Robotics. It's last year I did middle school, this year I'm doing high school, and I'm actually in another couple days I'm going to be traveling to Hollywood, where we're going to be doing a 3-day competition for robotics. And last year I went to the World Championships, where there were 31 countries, and we built these robots that are 18 by 18 inches starting out, and they can expand however they want to. And last year it was basically disc golf for robots in a 12 by 12-foot area where there's a 2v2 where two robots go against two other robots, and the first 15 seconds is 100% autonomous. It's a game, and where last year's game it was scoring discs into a goal, like just like disc golf. And the first 15 seconds in every single game is autonomous, where the robot is 100% controlled by your code. And then the next 1 minute 45 is just like a game where you're controlling the robots, two teams versus two teams, where you're trying to score as many points as possible. And last year it was throwing discs into a high goal, which we qualified for the World Championships. And this year we are the game, which the competition I'm going to, we go to like 5 to 6 competitions before the World Championships. Hopefully that we can qualify this year too. It's basically like soccer, but with 48 balls on each side, where you're supposed to take these triangular shaped balls that you intake and you shove in, and you're supposed to shoot across the field so then they're accessible. And hopefully at the upcoming competition we can do really good. But there's going to be like 96 teams, so it's going to be quite competitive.
Wow.
Yes, this year it's going to be high school, and last year it's
Yeah.
middle school. So we'll
There's a
see.
huge difference between high school and middle school.
So how do you prioritize your education and your passions?
Well, fortunately, gardening is like all of a summer thing, and then robotics kind of revolves around education. And the like debate is a class in high school, so that doesn't really have to be a part of an after school thing. And all my debate topics, I always choose stuff that doesn't have lots of homework. And then DECA's once again, it's something that's before school, so it doesn't really, and it's not a lot of time. But the only thing is robotics, and that's my main extracurricular. So that combined with the fact that gardening is during summer, it doesn't really affect that much of time.
Okay.
Especially that he's doing mainly giant pumpkin growing. His focus right now is mainly on giant pumpkin growing. So I think that is mainly during the spring and summer, April through October time. And I think right now it's working out. We'll see how it's
as
down
we
the
go,
line.
Like this sophomore year with more APs and stuff.
Yeah, it all started with the pandemic, and yeah, that's why we see already the difference. Earlier he could do a lot of other vegetable growing too, and slowly with lots of academical and other things, he's focusing only on the giant pumpkin. So right now we are able to balance.
Yeah. Those are huge accomplishments, Uncle. I really, really appreciate your parents for the support that you get from them. it means it takes a village to raise kids, and when someone wants to do something like this, it's even more like time consuming and challenging, whereas with the jobs that we have, and then the chores and all that. So awesome, excellent. And I would wish you nothing less but the best in whatever that you want to do.
Thank
Right?
you.
Mhm.